welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I have a compilation of some of my favorite fall DIYs for your inspiration. So if you want to know how to make them, stick around. I'll show you how. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Right, Maxwell? For this first project, I'm going to start with a 1x2 piece of wood, and I'm going to cut 6 6-inch lengths, and I'm going to cut one 7.5-inch length. And I'm going to make 2 of these with this one piece of board. And you get this wood at Lowe's. It runs $1.47, so it is a real budget-friendly project. You get all your boards cut, go ahead and glue them together, and I'm just using regular wood glue, and I'm just coming down the center of this a little bit. I'm not going to add so much that it oozes out, so just kind of do like a little zigzag, and then just go ahead and put them together. And then we're going to clamp them here in a minute too. And I did leave that little knot facing forward. I thought it really gave it a little bit more character. And then go ahead and clamp them. And you want to do it at the top and the bottom. Just make sure that the bottom is even. And then go ahead and get any glue that's oozing out off of it at this point. I'm going to take a sander and I'm just going to round my edges on the side. Just kind of twist it around there like I'm doing. Kind of move it around without holding it in one place, and it'll make a nice curve. See how good that looks? And I'm going to do that to both sides, and I'm going to do it to the bottom as well. If you have one of these belt sanders, it works really good. It'll also work good with a palm sander. But you do want to kind of move it as you're going. Okay, then I'm going to take a palm sander and I'm just going to sand the face of it. This is a way, if you had any glue on it, you can get it off, because you do want to get any glue off of it because glue will not stain. So make sure that you do sand down those areas that have glue on them. Did the same thing. I curved the stem up a little bit too. Just go right around it and curve it up too. See how good that looks? I'm going to stain these with a dark walnut stain, and I'm just using a regular cotton rag to do that. And when I'm staining, I put quite a bit of stain on here, and then I just wipe off the excess. It doesn't get absorbed into the wood. And I'm only doing one coat on these. Then I'm going to use these little leaves that I got at Hobby Lobby. If you watched my Hobby Lobby haul last week, these are the wooden ones I was talking about. These are really pretty, and I'm going to stain those with a different color. I'm just going to use like a special walnut. It's a little bit lighter than the dark walnut, but it'll give a little bit more contrast. And I'm just going to do the fronts and the backs. The sides I'm not going to do because they already have a pretty brown burnt edge to them, but just get them stained real well. Okay, I'm taking what's left of a sticker page. It's got a shiny surface to it. If you don't have this, you can do the same process with wax paper. Just cut it to 8.5 by 11 to go into your printer. And I just printed a pattern. I'll give you that in the description below. You can download it and print it too. But don't touch the paper with your hand because the ink is very wet and it will smear. So try to just kind of cut these apart without touching them. And we're going to transfer this onto our wood. I tried to tear it a little bit there, but I think I was going to tear my pattern, so I went ahead and finished cutting it. Just don't touch it with your fingers because it will smear. And then I'm just going to lay it right on top of my pumpkin. And you want to make sure that you don't move it once you get there. Go ahead and trim it out. I started to do it the other way, but I decided to trim it out so I can kind of see a little bit better where I'm putting this. And then just lay it down. If you can go ahead and have some tape ready to tape it, it makes it a little bit easier as well. I didn't do it on this one, but I did do it on the second one. Just kind of lay it down lightly, hold it in place, and then I'm going to use a brayer to roll this on. You can actually just use a credit card if you want to do it with it, but just kind of keep it in one place. I did move mine just a little bit there, but it didn't end up messing it up too bad. And if you do this on a lighter surface, it looks a little bit prettier. So you can still see the pattern. I just kind of wanted like a rustic look for this. But you could actually paint it white if you wanted to and put it on there. It looks so pretty. I may do that in some projects coming up. But then I did end up taping this one because I didn't want to move it. And that's probably the best way to do it. But this is a great way to transfer a pattern onto something. You could transfer it onto canvas. You could transfer it onto wood, anything. And I'll show you how clear this one came out. My wood was a little bit lighter on this one, so it did come out a little bit more clear. And you will want to Mod Podge over the top of this when you're done because that ink is still wet. You do want to Mod Podge to make it stay in place. But look how pretty that is. And I'm just going to attach my leaves to the top. I'm going to kind of offset them a little bit. Okay, then to dress it up a little bit, I'm just going to add a little raffia to the top part. I just took it and tied it in a knot, and then I'm just going to glue it right to the top. For the second one, I did exactly the same thing, but I put my leaves both forward. Second project, I'm going to use some white satin paint. You could use a primer, and I'm going to paint 3 small mason jars. And I'm going to paint one of them orange, one of them a burgundy, and one of them a moss green. Now, I mixed a little bit of brown with my orange here to kind of make it a little bit deeper. But on the second coat, I just went back with the solid orange. So just go solid orange. Don't mix this up together. And then I'm just taking a sponge to sponge this on with, and then I'm going to take a sponge paintbrush to paint into the grooves of the lid, and I'm going to paint the entire thing a color. And if you don't want to use the primer or the white paint first, you can do it with just doing it this way here, but you will have to use more paint. And then you can get in the crevices a little bit easier if you use a little sponge paintbrush. And then I'm using an embossing gun just to kind of dry it up between times so I can paint again quicker. And then this is where I came back with just the orange, and I think it was a little prettier. And we're just making some little farmhouse style pumpkins. I also did one in moss green, and then I also did one in burgundy as well. Now these paints are just Waverly chalk paint, and you can get these at Walmart. But they went on real well. And then the burgundy took a couple extra coats because it had a little bit of pink hue to it, but it did darken up nicely. For all my jars dried, I'm using a Folk Art Crackle medium, and I'm just using a sponge brush to apply it, and I'm just coming down from the ledge down, and I'm going to put a pretty good bit of this on it. And you don't want to put just a light coat on this. You want to go ahead and put a heavy coat on this because the heavier you do it, the more crackle you will get. And I'm going to do this to all 3 of my jars, and then you need to set them aside and let them dry for about an hour. I ended up having to let mine dry for about an hour and a half. And I'm doing the same thing to the other 2 jars. But that's completely dried. I'm just going to come from the top down, and I'm just going to do a light coat of paint all the way around. Now this is going to start to crackle as soon as you start putting this on there, and it'll get a little bit heavier. So try not to go over sections that you've just done because you don't want to paint over your crackle. Just kind of keep going until you get it all painted in. And it's going to start crackling pretty good. Just kind of move in quick, even strokes. Just kind of keep going around, but don't overlap. And then just set that aside and it'll crack even more. And then I'm going to do exactly the same method with the orange one and the purple one. And just kind of quickly move through this. And if you like the farmhouse look, this really did work well. You can kind of see the orange kind of through this. I really like the way that this one turned out. And I'm just going to take a chip brush and I'm going to just lightly put on some paint on the sides. Just kind of rub it off onto your paper towel. And then just go ahead and go over the top a little bit just to kind of distress that up as well. I got these stems at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to glue one onto the top of each one of these jars. Then I'm just going to add a fall leaf to the top of each one of these. And I'm cutting the stem off on these. That way it'll be flush right up there next to that stick. And I'm putting the same color on all three of these. Then I'm just going to go ahead and take some more of that raffia I used in the previous project, and I'm just going to tie it right around the neck of each one of these jars. Okay, I really like using mason jars for some fall decor, and then when Christmas comes, you could actually just sand that off and repurpose it for Christmas. And then I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the sides. Pretty easy. Let me know what you think. For this first one, I'm starting with a styrofoam ball that measures 4.7 inches in diameter, and then I'm going to take a cutting tool, a foam cutting tool, and I'm just going to cut it in half. And you can take a knife to do this, but this does go through it like butter. Next, I'm just taking some branches that I got out of my backyard. We trimmed our trees, and so I had these, and I'm just going to go ahead and distress it with a little bit of a tan paint and a little bit of brown paint. Now, if you don't have any branches to cut from, you can always get a dowel stick that's pretty big. I would say this is probably about 1.5 inches in diameter. And I'm just distressing it a little bit just to make it look a little bit more aged. And a little bit more at the bottom because that's where it would be standing in the grass. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take my stick. I'm going to put it onto my styrofoam ball, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle around it. I'm going to cut this section out because I do want this to be recessed inside of that styrofoam. And I'm just taking an X-Acto knife, just going to go around that circle and just dig out probably about 1/2 inch. That way the stem will be stuck inside of the styrofoam ball, and it'll hold together a little bit better with your glue. And then just go ahead and test fit it just to make sure you did get that opened up wide enough. For the top part of the mushroom, I'm just going to cover it with some Sherpa fleece. I'll give you the link for this. I got it on Etsy. Just make sure that you get a piece that's big enough to cover the entire thing because you want to make sure the bottom's covered as well. And I'm just going to use a bowl to kind of go around and shape it, so I can make sure that I do get the circle shape. And I'm just eyeballing this. I just want to make sure that it did cover mine first. I think this ended up being about like a 13 by 13, but just measure it against your styrofoam and then go ahead and cut it out in a circle. And then I'm just going to make sure that I did cut it big enough so that it does cover it completely. You want to make sure it meets in the middle. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take it and I'm going to kind of shape it out a little bit better. And you want to use a fleece fabric because it's stretchy. That way, if you didn't get it exactly right, you can go ahead and pull it on around. To gather this up, I'm just going to take a needle and thread, and I'm just going to sew a casing all the way around the outside edge. And I'm just going to do 1/4 inch stitches, but go ahead and start off by just go ahead and tying your knot at the end because we are going to draw it up once we get to the other side. And I'm going to leave my fabric underneath my little half circle there as I'm going around because it does end up getting a little bit stuck to the fabric, and you want to kind of keep it there before you start going. Otherwise, you might not get it as even in the center. And then just go all the way around with 1/4 inch stitches till you get to the other side. Go ahead and start gathering it up and pulling it on around your styrofoam ball, and make sure that you get all the way to the center. And then before you tie it off, go ahead and start smoothing out the sides. You want to make sure that the top is completely smooth, and you can get this completely smooth on top and on the sides. And then go ahead and tie a knot and tie that off. And then we're going to start gluing it in here too. And just go ahead and glue around the edge and inside as well, and then go ahead and flatten it out. You want to try to get this as flat as you can so that it doesn't droop when you actually put it on your stem. So spend a little bit of time on your gluing just to get it completely glued in real good. To make the mushroom veil, we're going to take a piece of fabric that measures 8 inches by 2 inches, and we're just going to go ahead and take some of the Tim Holtz Distressing ink in the walnut stain, and I'm just going to go ahead and distress the edges of it. And I'm just using a linen fabric. And then go ahead and take your pinking shears and go ahead and trim out the edges. You want to get all the loose stuff off. Just fold it over and we're going to glue the two sides together with the ink side in the center. Go ahead and turn your fabric right side out, and we're going to take a needle and thread, and we are just going to sew a casing around the top edge. And I'm just using 1/4-inch stitches all the way around. And then go ahead and set it over the top part of your stick, gather it up, and then go ahead and separate the pleats a little bit so they're kind of even all the way around, and then go ahead and tie that off. Okay, then go ahead and stand it up, and then we're going to start gluing it in. Just kind of make sure your pleats are pretty even all the way around. And then just go up underneath the very bottom and then just start gluing it to the top. And you're just gluing the very top edge. You want the bottom edge to be loose. Attach my stem. I'm just going to use some E6000 glue and hot glue, and I'm just going to put a little E6000 glue inside first and onto my stick, and then put the hot glue inside here as well, and go ahead and join the two. Just push it all the way down till it's recessed inside of that mushroom head. Decorate the top a little bit. I'm just going to take some white puff paint, and I'm just going to make some decor on top of it. And I'm just doing one line and then like two little short lines underneath it, and I'm just going to kind of randomly go around on the top part of this cap. And if you don't want to put this on here, you can leave this off. It'd look good without it as well. I just thought it needed a little bit of decoration on top. I ended up doing a cluster of 3 of these. So I did a tan one and I did white lines on it. And then I also did a white one or a cream colored one, and I did brown lines on it. And I ended up having to get slicks for this. They didn't have puff paint in this color at my store. Slicks works just fine as well. And I'll give you the link for these. This one I'm going to take 5 Jingle blocks. Now these are the larger Jingle blocks like what you get at Five Below and on Amazon. I'll give you the link for these. And I'm just using some wood glue to glue them together. And I am alternating them all the way up, hanging over the edge on both sides, and I'll show you here in a second when I actually finish gluing this and I lay it down. And that's how that looks from the side. And then I'm just taking some white chalk paint and I'm going to paint them, and it took 2 coats to get them completely covered. Okay, then I'm going to distress them a little bit with some orange pumpkin colored paint. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water, and then I'm using a chip brush. I'm going to dab it off on a paper towel, and then I'm going to lightly go over this just to kind of get the little bit of color on here so it does have the pumpkin color. Just kind of distressing it a little bit just with the chip brush. And you don't use a lot of paint on this to do this, just really just kind of, it's almost like dry brushing. But I'm going to get the sides, the top, and the bottom, and the back. Then I'm just going to add a stem to the very top to make it kind of look like a pumpkin theme. And I got these leaves at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to glue them right to the top. Then I'm going to take some canvas and some snap together letters. You get these at Michael's. You can snap them together and put any words you want. And then I'm putting a rubber band around them to hold them together a little bit better. And then I'm going to take some pinking shears and cut out my tag. And I'm just cutting my tag out about the size of one of the Jingle blocks. Just enough room to put the word thankful on it. I'm just going to stamp it with a black ink pad. Just kind of get it in the center. Then I'm just going to glue it to like the 3rd block down so it'll be right in the center, and I'm just using hot glue with that. Using those same brads, I'm just cutting the back of it off, and then I'm going to flatten them out with the side of my pliers because they do protrude up a little bit. I'm going to add one to each side of my little sign. And these would be good for a tiered tray. They'd be good for just to give a friend a little Thanksgiving gift, or also a place setting. And I'm just going to top it off with just a little bit of moss right around the top. Okay, that was pretty simple, and look how cute that is. Okay, I'm gonna start with a wood round. This one measures 3.5 inches, and this one measures 2.25 inches, and these are gonna be for the eyes. Then I am just going to draw in with a pencil a little pupil, and I'm going to paint it black. I'm just freehand drawing this in. I'd suggest doing it before you paint, then you can make sure you know exactly where you're wanting to paint. And I'm doing that to both eyes, making them match on each side. I'm going to take some black chalk paint and a flat paintbrush, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill these in. And this really didn't take that much time to do, and if you wanted to, you could actually use a black Sharpie if you didn't want to paint it. To make the eyes a little bit more realistic, I'm coming in with some white paint, and I'm just going to put 2 little white dots on here. One larger one and then one smaller one to kind of give it a reflection. Just use the tip of your paintbrush to do the last dot. Attach these, I'm just going to use some wood glue to attach the discs together. And I'm kind of putting them towards the center. Face, I got this wood round at Michael's. It measures 12 inches by 10 inches. And I'm going to glue my wood eyes onto the top part to make a face. And then this is a little piece of driftwood I got for the beak. You can buy those in a package on Amazon. I'll give you the link for those. And then be sure and remove any excess glue if it seeps out from under it, because you will see it. And then I'm going to attach my eyes with the wood glue as well. And I'm just going right up against the beak. For his legs, I'm taking 2 little cocktail forks from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to spray paint them brown. For his little perch, I just got a stick out of my yard, and I'm putting some E6000 glue and hot glue on this to attach it. And you could have used wood glue on this as well. And then place your forks over the stick like it's setting on top of this, like it's perched on that stick, and then go ahead and glue them in with some E6000 glue and some hot glue. And you'll want to hold your fork until the hot glue dries, because it does have a curve to it. You want to make sure it's flat. Some feathers, I'm just going to glue them right to the top, and I got these from Hobby Lobby. You can get them on Amazon, Michael's, just about everybody carries feathers in craft stores. And I'm adding quite a few. Add some ears. I'm just going to take some felt and cut some kind of triangular shape pieces for the ears. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just kind of going around in a circle, and then I'm going to glue the 2 pieces together to put right up at the top. I'm only using hot glue on this part right here. All right, and that was pretty much it. It was pretty simple. For this project, I'm just using some pallet wood that I had in scraps, and I'm just going to cut these to 9 inches in length. And this is going to be for the bottom of my box. Just make sure that you get them lined up good, and then go ahead and cut them at exactly the same length. Okay, now that I got the bottom cut, I'm going to go ahead and make the sides. I'm just going to measure it against the base of this on both pieces, and then I'll cut those 2 sides also, exactly the same size. Before I cut my last 2 pieces, I'm going to go ahead and assemble what I have so I can get an exact measurement on this. And I'm just going to use wood glue to attach this. And if you have clamps, go ahead and clamp it. And you can get those on Amazon. They're real inexpensive, but I definitely recommend getting a set of those if you're going to do woodworking. And then let that dry. That's dried. I'm going to go ahead and attach my 2 side pieces, and I'm going to use wood glue on those as well. And I am going to clamp these also. As that's dry, we're going to go ahead and measure for the wood for the sides. And then I'm just going to cut this off with my saw. And then I already attached one side off camera, sorry about that. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach the other side. Same thing with wood glue and clamping it. This is a good way to use up some scrap wood. To decorate my box, I'm just going to put a piece of styrofoam right into the center and just glue it in. I'm going to take a eucalyptus vine that I had, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill in all the way around the styrofoam. Now, I'm not going to glue this in. I'm just setting it in here. That way, if I want to use this for Christmas or something like that, I can still do that. And then I'm going to cut an additional piece in half, and I'm just going to put it right into the center. This will just cover up the styrofoam. Okay, then I'm just going to attach some pumpkins with some little bamboo skewers, and I got those at Hobby Lobby. Just going to kind of cut them off and just stick one on each side. These are the ones that have like a knitted fabric on them. And then I'm going to add 2 blue ones also to this. And I'm using the bamboo skewers on it as well. I'm not gluing anything in here at all because if I do want to reuse this, I can. And then I'm going to add a white pumpkin right in the center. And then I got this bag of acorns at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to kind of scatter them amongst the greenery. And that was pretty much it. It was pretty simple. Okay, for this one, I'm going to start with one of the Dollar Tree yard signs, and I'm just going to take some tan colored pipe cleaners, and I'm just going to start tying it around the bottom. And I'm going to use quite a few. I'm not sure exactly how many I use, but you just want to use enough that'll fill it up, and you'll figure that out as you're putting this all together. But just twist them around a couple of times tight, and then you can move these once you get them put in here. So just go ahead and start loading them up. Next, I'm going to take some Deco mesh I got at Hobby Lobby. It measures 10 inches, and I'm cutting it into 10-inch strips. And I'm not going to use the whole entire Deco mesh roll on this. I actually used maybe about 2/3 of it. But just keep cutting into strips until you have quite a few of them. But they are 10 inches wide by 10 inches wide. You're going to take the Deco mesh and you're going to roll the raw edges together. So your outside edges are the finished out edges, and just pull them together, and then go ahead and just wrap it around your pipe cleaner 2 times real tight. And then you're going to continue to do this all the way until you have it all the way down to the bottom and it's full. And you can push them together so that they are tighter, but you do want this to be pretty full. And then I found a quicker way to do this. So you roll it up, add a little clip on one end, and then go ahead and roll the other side to it, and then you can pull it apart. Okay, then you're just going to continue to keep going until you have it completely full. And then go ahead, as you're putting these in here, go ahead and push them up to the top. You want it to be full. And you could actually use multicolors in this. I just had this one. I've had it for a couple of years, so I thought I'd go ahead and use that. But you could, put any kind of color combination you want to, and mix colors as well. In all, I used about 27 of these to make this complete thing. But you do want to get the wide one, the 10-inch wide one, because I'm going to show you in a little bit how we're going to make it a swag, but you need to make sure that it's wide enough at the top to come down. Now, if you want to go wider, you can, but you don't want to go smaller than 10 inches. Okay, next I took a dowel stick and I sharpened one end of it with a pencil sharpener, and I'm just running it through the center of a synthetic cork. Now this cork is 1.5 inches, and this is what's going to serve as the stopper at the end of this so that these do not fall off. And just keep going until you have it pretty full, and then we're going to come in and we're going to cut that cork short and glue that in. That way it won't ever slide off of this little rod. Now that you're close to the very bottom of this, I'm going to put this last one on, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that cork short. And I'm just going to glue it in with some hot glue. But you see how far down I went? I mean, I've got these really pushed together, so it's really a tight bunch in the center here. Go ahead and take your cork off. We're going to cut it in half, and then we're just going to put some hot glue on it and glue it back on. And that way, this will keep any of that pipe cleaner from slipping off. To add some color, I'm taking some green ribbon and some orange ribbon. I got both of these at Dollar Tree. They measure 2.5 inches wide, and I'm going to cut them in 10-inch strips. And I'm just using a little rotary cutter to do this. This is an easy way to cut your ribbon, and it's an easy way to cut the deco mesh too. And I'm just making a mark right there so I don't have to keep bringing my ruler in and measuring. Now I'm just going to cut a bunch of strips. I ended up using 2 rolls of each color on this one. And they're not real big spools, so if you got your ribbon from somewhere else, you would have more ribbon. You probably wouldn't have to use but maybe 1 spool. And then I'm going to cut the green one in 10 inch, and I'm going to cut the orange one in 10 inches as well. I'm going to notch a V at the end of each one of these ribbons. And I'm going to do it on the orange one and the green one. And then I finally figured out it was a little bit easier if you just kind of stack them up a bunch together. You can cut a bunch of them at one time. It made it a little bit faster. But you do want to cut both ends. To dress it up a little bit, I'm just alternating, putting these on each side. I'm folding them in half, and I'm putting each one of these together with the pipe cleaner and twisting them off. And then in a little bit, I'm going to start putting the pipe cleaner into the back and pulling it down and then tying it off. But just alternate, put the orange next to the green, and then on the side, the green next to the orange, and keep going until you get all the way down. And I'm going to kind of go fast through this, and then I'll stop a little bit and show you how I do pull them to the back. And you're just going to take your pipe cleaner and just going to pull it around to the back. Just go around your mesh. And then you're going to pull it really tight so that you don't see the pipe cleaner on the top side of the ribbon. And then just continue to do that as you're going along, and then we'll flip it over here after a while and we'll start tying it off. Just kind of fluff it up a little bit, and then continue to put your green and your orange in and pull your pipe cleaners to the back. And you want to do this while you add each row, and then go ahead and twist it into the back, and then go ahead and cut those off. But you want to pull them tight so that you don't see the pipe cleaner in the front. And then just keep going and adding until you get it completely filled in. And this really didn't take that long once you start going, and I only had about $15 in this entire project. And I'll give you the link for the ribbon I got at Hobby Lobby as well as the ribbon that I got at Dollar Tree. And be sure and tie these off as you're going, otherwise it's going to get so thick it's going to be really hard to get that wire to the back. And then just continue to clip it off of there and then keep adding. To create the swag, we're just going to start pulling these down into the shape. So go ahead and take the ones probably halfway down and start pulling them in until they make a V shape. Okay, then I got this little sign at Hobby Lobby. It comes in like a pack of 5. It says thankful, and I'm just painting it with an orange terracotta color paint. Okay, then I got these little acorns at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to put about 4 or 5 of them inside of here just to kind of dress it up a little bit. And I'm just kind of putting them offset from each other. And you could put, you know, pine cones in here. You could put little pumpkins in here. You could really dress this up, but I just kind of wanted to make it look a little bit more simple. I'm just going to go ahead and glue on my thankful sign right at the top, just right on top of my ribbon. Hang this, I'm just taking a piece of jute and I'm just running it through the back wire on this, and then I'm just going to tie a knot on it. Okay, that was pretty much it. This was a super simple one. For this next one, I'm going to take a pool noodle I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut it at 1.5 inches in length. And you could use any pool noodle that you want to, but I'm just cutting mine at 1.5 inch lengths. And I actually did quite a few of these. For these, I'm just going to go ahead and take this bundle that I got from Amazon. These are 2.5 inch wide strips of fabric. You could just cut fabric if you want, but it came with quite a variety of different colors and patterns. And I'm going to start with this one checkered one, and I'm just going to cut this right down the center. And they come frayed on both sides, and so I am going to take some of the strings out to kind of give it a nice frayed edge on both sides. Just kind of pull your strings out and then just go ahead, and you might want to cut some of them off, but just get several of them pulled off. To attach my fabric, I'm just going to put a little glue inside the noodle, and I'm just going to go ahead and put one end right inside of there. And then I got this little hair weaving tool on Amazon. I'll give you the link for it in the description below. But it really works good to kind of just easily pull these through. You just loop it onto your fabric, and then you can just start looping it through. And this is very similar to the pumpkins I did with the yarn, but instead using fabric. And you're just going to make sure that you go over halfway, and then go ahead and run it up in there and pull the other one that comes over the top halfway as well. So you want to cover up the one you just did by the half of it. And then just keep going around until you have it completely covered. Just kind of make sure that you do get your fabric straightened out. And these go together so quickly. If you set up at a craft fair, I definitely think I would make a bunch of these up for craft fairs, because these are so budget friendly. And then once you get to the end, then we're going to go ahead and glue it off. And we're going to glue right into the center, so you will have to trim a little bit. And then we're going to add the next strip. Okay, so just trim that off a little bit, just enough to go inside that hole, and then glue that in. You just want to make sure that you got it glued in where you can put your finger all the way through that hole. And then you're going to start your next piece right behind that one. And make sure that that hole is open, because we are going to add a stem, and you're going to need to make sure it goes all the way through. And then go ahead and wrap that. You're only going to wrap that one about 2 times, so you do get a lot out of that one strip. And then go ahead and trim that off in the back, and then glue that in as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add our stem. And I got these stems on Amazon. I'm just putting a little glue in the center, and I'm pushing it all the way till it goes to the bottom. The vintage look, I'm taking some of the Tim Holtz walnut stain, and I'm just going to go ahead and take my little dauber and go all the way around the edges and down the sides and the bottom. This is just going to give it a little aged look to it. And then I'm adding a little stem too. It was a little bit green, so I did take that Tim Holtz ink and rub it onto there as well. And then I'm just bending that over, and I'm just going to stick it right in there. And I'll glue that in a little bit. And then I'm going to take a cupcake holder, because I'm making pumpkin cupcakes. And I'm just going to put it right into the bottom. And I'm going to distress the sides of the cupcake holder too, like it's been baked. I'm going to add a tag that measures 2.5 by 1.5, and I'm just going to punch a hole into one end of it, and then I'm going to stamp this with pumpkin muffin. Now, I have these little stamps I got at Michael's. They pop apart and then you can pop them together. And I went ahead and spelled out pumpkin muffin, and I put a rubber band around them just to hold them in place because they do tend to move if you have a lot of them together. And then I'm just using some black ink to stamp them, and I'm just going to stamp pumpkin muffin. And you get these at Michael's. They are a great tool to have because you can spell so many different things with these. And then I'm going to go ahead and distress it with that same walnut stain as well. This is just a nice vintage piece. This would be great on a tiered tray. And then I'm just going to take some jute twine and I'm just going to attach it to it. And I'm going to tie it around the stem of my pumpkin. And then I'm going to add a little bit of green moss to the top to kind of finish it off. And I got that moss at Michael's. I'll give you the link for that. Just kind of put it right around the edge and I'm just going to glue that right on. And that was pretty much it. It was pretty simple. Next one, I'm just using one of the maple leaves from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to put Mod Podge on it, and I'm going to put scrapbook paper on it. Now, I just had some scrapbook paper that had like a wood tone to it, and I'm pretty sure I got that in a paper pack from Hobby Lobby. But I'm going to go ahead and generously put a lot of this Mod Podge on here, and then I'm just going to put my paper on there with the wood grain going up and down. After that completely dried, I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to trace around my leaf. And this really didn't take that long to do. Just, you don't have to be perfect because we are going to sand the edges here in a little bit as well. I'm going to take some 300 grit sandpaper and just lightly go around it just to kind of finish getting all the excess paper around the edges of it. To give it a little bit of a distress look, I'm going to take some black chalk paint and a chip brush, and I'm just going to go right around the edges with this. And I'm starting out light at first, and then I came back in and did it a little bit heavier. Just kind of get it look like it's outlined. Just try not to make this look so perfect. And then I came back in with a smaller brush to kind of get around the edges a little bit easier. And then I ended up going back with my chip brush because it was working just fine. And just go all the way around. Just make sure that you get it completely done. And then kind of have some hanging over the edge as well. And then after I get this one done all the way to the edge, then I'm going to go ahead and take some water. And I'm going to mix a little bit of the black chalk paint with the water, and I'm going to distress the center of this. Just get it just a little watered down paint, and then just go ahead and get a little bit more on the edges, and then we're going to go ahead and do some in the center as well. Just try to get most of the paint off of your brush before you start doing this. It up. I'm going to use a couple of these leaves I got at Dollar Tree. These are burlap leaves. I would highly recommend picking up several packs of these. They have them in a bunch of different colors. And then I got that little Hello Autumn. It came on this little bead stringer right here. And I'm going to go ahead and take all my beads off and use this on this project as well. I'm using two of the purple leaves from the little bundle that I got at Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to glue those down at an angle. And then I'm going to glue my green one over the top of those. And then I'm taking two of them together, and I'm just going to kind of glue them right at the tips of the leaves. I'm not going to put too much glue on it because I don't want it oozing through. Just kind of go around the edges and get the tips of them on. And then I'm just going to glue down the back of it and glue this right over the top of the purple leaves. Beef my stem up a little bit. I'm going to take a cork and I'm just going to cut it in half. And this is just miter shears. I'll give you the link for these. You get them on Amazon. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut off the two wires on the bottom of that leaf, and I'm just going to glue that right onto the bottom. Then I'm just going to add my Hello Autumn right in the center. To cover up my cork, I'm just going to start at the very top with some jute string, and I'm just going to go all the way around. Now, I'm going to do this pretty tight, and then I am going to put a little bit of glue as I go down a little bit just to hold it in place. Just make sure that you are getting that cork completely covered up. This just beefed up the bottom a little bit to make it not look like it's just a little skinny stem. Then to add a hanger to this, I'm just going to poke a hole right through the top part of this where that hole was. And I'm going to take some jute and those white beads, and I'm going to string them and attach them to the top. And then I'm just looping this through here, and I'm going to run it up through my beads, and then I'm going to glue it to the maybe like 2 or 3 up. Just glue the jute rope to itself, and then go ahead and put your beads on down and glue your beads in, and that'll hold that in place. And do the same thing at the top. Just take your string, run it down through the beads. I'm probably going about 2 or 3 of them down, and then go ahead and glue that rope together, and then go ahead and glue your beads on, and this will hold this together. And then just push your beads on down and put some glue inside of those. To dress it up a little bit, I'm just going to take some green wired ribbon, and I'm just going to make a bow. And I'm just kind of folding it over and folding it over again to make my loops. And then I'm going to take a rubber band to put around the center to hold it together, and then I'll make my final loop over the top. This is an easy way to make a bow. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut my diagonals out on the side, on each side, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece off to put in the center to go around the front part. Just kind of fold it over on both sides, and then just wrap it around and glue it in the back. Okay, then I'm just going to go ahead and glue it right to the top part of that stem, and then I'm going to add a flower to the front just to kind of dress it up a little bit. Next one, I'm taking a pool noodle, and I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm going to use both halves in this project. And then I'm going to take some craft paper, and I'm going to wad it up real fine. I'm breaking up the fibers in it, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it around our noodle to make this look like a wood log. And you want to roll it several times because you want to make sure that you don't see the orange through the paper. And then go ahead and just cut straight down the center. And then we'll save the other part for the other one. I'm just using some double-sided tape to go down one side, and then unroll your paper and go ahead and put a bead of that down your noodle as well. And then just go ahead and roll this up, and then you'll have it finished off, taped up together once you get done. Just roll it as tight as you can. You don't want it to be loose. And then we're going to go ahead and cut the ends off and tuck those in. And you could glue this in with some hot glue at the end here. I'm just pushing mine on in here. And I'm doing the same thing for the other side. And then I did my other noodle exactly the same way as I did this one. Okay, to make this look like a branch, I am going to take some truffle Waverly chalk paint and some black Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to dip my chip brush in it and get most of the paint off. Now don't look at the gray I mixed up. That turned into mud, and I passed that by, but I did test it on my paper. But just going to go ahead and kind of rub it onto the log, and what it's going to do, it's going to pick up the raised areas of the paper, and that's what it's going to actually paint onto. You want to still leave some of the craft color showing underneath. And just keep going until you get it as much as you want. Just start light at first, and then you can go back in and add more. And I'm going to do both of my logs exactly the same way. I'm going back in, and I'm going to do the black on top of the brown. And I'm adding a lot less of the black than I did the brown, and I'm doing both of mine the same way. This makes it a nice base for what we're doing next. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and add a garland, and I'm decided to go ahead and glue the end of my paper into the noodle just to make sure that it stays. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue around the top part of the noodle and then just going ahead and folding that on in. And then I'm going to glue the end of that garland down into that hole. And we're just going to wrap this around. Now we're going to use 2 garlands on this, and we're going to roll half of it with one and then half of it with the other. And this garland came from Amazon. I'll give you the link for it. Now, when you get it, it's a little bit wrinkled. If you just throw it in the dryer for about 4 to 5 minutes, it will come out really pretty and the leaves will be flat and you'll be surprised how pretty it is. And I'm just going to go ahead and start rolling it up. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue a couple of leaves to the top part just to kind of hold them in place. And then just keep wrapping it till you get to the center. And with doing the log look before we did this, this really does help not to have to put so much stuff on here because it does still look like a natural log. And try to get your leaves all turned the same way. And then when we get to the end, we're just going to go ahead and cut that loop off and go ahead and glue this up. You just want to make sure that you're only halfway. And just kind of shape it out a little bit to cover up the log. After you got that half done, we're going to go ahead and start at the opposite end and put our second one in. And just go ahead and glue it in as well. And then you're just going to wrap it till it meets in the middle with the other one. Be sure and glue your 2 leaves to the bottom, just like we did on the opposite end, and then just go ahead and start wrapping it till you get to the center. Just kind of turn your leaves where the colorful part is facing upward. And then we'll shape all this out here in a little bit. Once you get it all the way to the center and glued off, you can start shaping it and it really does turn out nice. And then when you get to the center, go ahead and cut that little loop off as well. And then we're going to go ahead and glue this right to the log. Okay, then to fill in any gaps that you want to fill in, I just got these flowers at Dollar Tree and I'm just going to kind of randomly place these in here. Just kind of makes it a little bit fuller. I just kind of picked some flowers that kind of match the colors of my leaves. And this is a great way to use things that you probably already have in your collection. And for a little texture, I'm just going to go in and put a few pine cones in here. Add a little bit more fullness to the top part. I went ahead and cut some of the leaves off the bottom that don't show anyway. And I'm just going to take a dowel stick and I'm going to poke a hole to the top part of my log and I'm just going to glue those in. And I'm gluing them in bundles of 2. And that really did make it a lot more full on top. And then you're not wasting what's on the bottom. Okay, then I'm just adding one of the sticks from my first project that I made. I'm putting 2 of these in here. And then I just place these side by side up on my mantle. I think they turned out so pretty. If you like a lot of real pretty bold colors during fall, I'd love to hear that in the comments. If you're a more neutral decor person, let me know that as well. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope it gave you some inspiration. Most all the stores have their fall stuff out right now. If you like these kind of videos, be sure and give me a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when I have a new video upload. Thank y'all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And if nobody's told you today, you're awesome. See you next time. Thanks for watching.